Good evening, everybody. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call your attention to the front of the podium. To start off, we would just love to say how happy we are, how glad we are to see so many people in the room catching up with friends after a long hiatus. Thanks, Dan. To begin this evening, though, I would really like to invite Chief Darlene Logan, the Chief of the Lheidli First Nation, on whose traditional territories we are gathered tonight. So if Chief, if you come up to provide the welcome, please. Thank you.
Hadi. Welcome, everyone. So this is the first time in 2 years everyone has got together. This is amazing. Look at everyone so happy to be here tonight. So I know all of you, we were all on the Zoom, so it's nice to see everybody, everyone, full length. So on behalf of our elders, our youth, our members, Chief and Council, and administration, I want to start by offering everyone a warm welcome to our unceded territory of the Lheidli. It was great to see everyone again. 2 years, like I said, has been a long time of meeting online. And I want to start by welcoming Premier Eby and his team, which were very nice. We met with them earlier this evening. And we look forward to working with his team to resolving some of our challenges and capitalize on new opportunities. I want a warm welcome to our chiefs, neighboring chiefs, all that are in attendance here. And we look forward to working with the other First Nations, working together to benefit our nations and British Columbia in the process. And finally, I want to welcome our local government, industry, and business leaders who are all here as well. Your participation tells us that you are aware of the importance of our resources industries, and that you see that the importance of supporting excellent working relationships with First Nations and communities. I want to thank the organizers of the BC Natural Resources Forum, C3 Alliance, in putting another excellent program together. And I want to say, happy anniversary. It's 20 years that you have been coming to this. I know I just heard somebody say, wow. So I thought everyone has a great evening and have fun meeting in person. Okay, it's Natalia.
Well, thank you so much, Chief Logan. And yes, it's right, it's 20 years. I think there's a few of you in the audience that have been to at least some of those early ones. I don't know if you've made it to every year, but we are so pleased that we've got old friends, new friends coming together. We're excited to really celebrate, and we recognize this conference as the largest multi-sector natural resource, which it's quite a unique event. It brings together everybody from across sectors, from communities, Indigenous communities, local government leaders, and we're so pleased to have you all here today. I'd also like you to join me in thanking the sponsor of the great pre-banquet trade show reception that we just enjoyed. So that was Coastal GasLink. So round of applause for Coastal GasLink, please. So to give you a rundown of the program today, we will have I'll call the dinner service shortly, and then the Premier will be making his remarks following dinner service. So right now, I'm really pleased to introduce our head table. So please hold your applause until everyone has been introduced. So we have Doug Slater, the Vice President, External Indigenous Relations for Fortis BC. Stephen Dean, the Chairman and CEO of Artemis Gold. Tyler Bannock, Manager of Public and Government Affairs, British Columbia with CN. Randy Reichart, President and CEO of Skeena Resources. Simon Pascoe, General Manager of BC Works, Rio Tinto. Regional Chief Terry Teege, the BC Assembly of First Nations, and his lovely wife, Rena Zatorsky. Simon Yu, the Mayor of Prince George. Chief Councillor Crystal Smith of Haisla Nation and Cedar LNG. Chief Karina Lewin, Cheslata Carrier Nation, and also the Vice Chair of the First Nations Major Projects Coalition. Chief Darlene Logan, who we also just saw, the Lheidli First Nation. And lastly, not leastly, we're very happy to have him, the Honorable David Eby, the Premier, Governor of BC. So please join me in welcoming him. And thank all of you for joining us tonight. So we'd like to start our evening, actually. We put together a very short video, commemorative video for celebrating 20 years. And so I'd like to invite our AV team to put that video up.
I was elected in 2001 as part of the BC Liberal government. One of the key challenges in BC at the time was, and continues to be, land use conflicts. My team and I came up with the concept of getting everyone from all of the key resource industries in the same room at the same time to talk. We were glad to have our original event organizer, Joanne Uransky, with us in the early days. Without Joanne, we wouldn't have been able to do this.
Well, Pat told me about the plan to launch this new event, and he asked if my team would help. So of course we said absolutely. So in the early days, the forum was 2.5 days of keynote speeches and panel sessions that focused on the best of Northern BC innovation and resource business.
From day one, Rio Tinto Alcan and its government relations director, Richard Prokopenko, were title sponsors of the forum, and without their generous contributions, we wouldn't have been able to continue.
So the idea of an annual forum to share and communicate, bring all kind of people together from diverse interests of the community, government, and industry made perfect sense, not only to me, but all my colleagues. So Rio Tinto decided to be supportive of the first forum in 2003, way back, and has been one of the many sponsors, along with so many others, ever since.
But as the forum kept growing, the expectations grew with it. My successor, Mike Morris, eventually turned things over to Dan and C3.
We were confident that focusing on great speakers, ensuring that delegates had great accommodation, a stellar venue, great food, and networking opportunities would create a not-to-be-missed annual event. It is so very rewarding to hear delegates, speakers, and sponsors say if they could only attend one conference per year, it would be the BC Natural Resources Forum in Prince George.
When I used to work on the LNG Canada project, every January I knew where I needed to be, at the BC Natural Resources Forum. There really is no better place for people to come together to talk about the most critical issues as it relates to natural resources in our province. Very often we take for granted the natural resources that we can develop here in this province. Very often we've taken for granted how do all people participate in that development. But here today at this forum is where we can talk about that. So congratulations on 20 years, and I certainly expect that the forum will be around for at least another 20 more.
I started coming to the BC Natural Resources Forum in Prince George after I was first elected in 2005 in opposition. And I learned a lot about BC's natural resources from this forum, and most importantly, met the people who are involved in the natural resource sector across the spectrum in northern British Columbia. The venue is great, it's comfortable, it's intimate, and you can meet and talk to people in a way that you can never do in your office down in the lower mainland. I was so impressed with the forum as a regular attendee that I impressed upon incoming Premier Horgan that he ought to come up and speak to the forum when he was elected Premier. And he did come up and very much enjoyed the experience as well.
And what I think of most, first and foremost, is the relationship building between local government leaders, between First Nations leaders, between BC cabinet ministers and senior bureaucrats, and most importantly, between industry leaders as well. And those relationships are really important because as we discuss honestly the risks and benefits of resource extraction, existing and proposed development in BC, you have to have those relationships to have those honest discussions.
Since its inception, the BC Natural Resources Forum has been an important place for our members to connect and share ideas. Our province's future as a responsible supplier of choice, of critical minerals, and other low-carbon natural resources depends on all of us working together. And the BC Natural Resources Forum provides an excellent platform for this to happen.
Our nation is honored each year to host the premier Natural Resources Forum in our unceded territory in our home community of Prince George. More so now, more than ever, we need to have a conversation about how to support sustainable resource management. And the BCNRF ensures that First Nations will be a key part of that conversation.
The BCNRF had become one of the major annual events in our community. Over 1,000 attendees, every hotel in the city booked solid for 3 to 4 days, restaurants were crowded, and good luck trying to get a cab.
We are thrilled to be back in Prince George on the lands of the Lheidli First Nation for the BC Natural Resources Forum. There has always been something about the energy in the Prince George Conference and Civic Centre when we meet in January for the BCNRF. The BC resource sector is critical to BC's economy, and we are pleased to have an event where everyone from government, industry, First Nations, and other stakeholders attend and participate in shaping the sector and the future of BC.
For the natural resource sectors to become truly innovative and sustainable, they need commitment and support from government, First Nations, communities, companies, investors, and regulators. The place to start and sustain those conversations is at the BCNRF.
Our community knows that our future is linked to the responsible resource development in our territory. We are helping our youth, who are the future leaders of our community, revisit the land and learn more about how our ancestors sustained themselves for thousands of years. Part of this journey is to learn about how sustainable resource development can help make us stronger economically, socially, and environmentally.
The BCNRF is now recognized as Western Canada's largest multi-sector resources conference, and it's an event that's a catalyst for positive change and reconciliation. It's really great to be part of the 20th anniversary edition of BCNRF.
We know the event is unique and it's recognized across our Canadian offices as a must attend. We also encourage our partners and colleagues and stakeholders to attend each January if they can.
The theme of this year's forum is how BC is contributing to an innovative, responsible, and respectful global natural resource sector. The forum provides a positive, nonpartisan arena to discuss and learn firsthand the latest news, trends, and opportunities within the key resource sectors in BC and across Canada. Well, C3 has been so proud to play a part in growing the BC Natural Resources Forum with all of you. So cheers to 20 more years for this premier BC event.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. I hope this is the year that everyone talks about for many years to come. So I'd like to acknowledge our banquet sponsor this evening, which is Artemis Gold, as well as Sodexo, who was kind enough to sponsor the wine. So please join me in a round for Artemis and Sodexo. I'd also like to give a special shout out for the 20th anniversary video to Andrew Johnson, to Kevin Brown and Gordon Fanti, who helped put that together. So thanks very much for that, guys. And now I'd like to invite the Prince George Civic Center serving staff to begin their important work, and we'll reconvene our program around 7:40. So thanks and enjoy your meal.
Hold on to your kindness. this empty bottle? 'Cause is this aching hell? It's all an illusion. 'Cause you will not break those ties. And now the memory's fading. Quick sight in the mirror. I'm losing patience with myself. Pockets are empty. As gone is my well. You took it from me when the morning was still young, and with the opening of eyes, a sweet serenade, sweet dancer. It was the touch of your hand. You be my final romance.
Just like the snow we fall and then we fade away. A month, a day, a week, a year, just like to say we were here. We were here.
Wonderful, everyone. So if I could get your attention, we'll start the evening portion of our program. And first, I'd like to just start by saying a huge thanks to the staff that just served us that delicious dinner. So please join me in a big round of applause for our serving team and our chef today. It's been amazing, and we know we're back. It's fantastic. So before I introduce our sponsor and keynote speaker for the Celebrating Natural Resources Banquet, I'd just like to give you an idea of what the next 2 days are going to look like. We're going to start tomorrow morning here, opening ceremonies in the CN Hall. We'll host all of our coffee and nutrition breaks. If you haven't been into the exhibit hall in 103, please do and visit our trade show. There'll be coffee, and anytime we're serving it, we'll be in that auditorium as well as in the foyer area. We're extremely excited to host the Resource Ministers Breakfast again, which is on Thursday this year. So that'll begin promptly at 7:15 a.m. So keep that in mind. Maybe tonight's the night you want to have a later night, and Wednesday's the day you want to take it in a little earlier. And if you haven't done already, we really encourage you to use the QR code on the back of our printed program to download the Whova app, so you can see all the sponsors, the exhibitors, any of the live updates to the program. And if you can do that before tomorrow, it'd be great, because that's where we'll be moderating our Q&A from. So if you have questions for panels or speakers tomorrow, it's going to be through the Whova app. And so now it's my great pleasure to invite Stephen Dean, the chairman and CEO of Artemis Gold, to come forward to introduce our keynote speaker this evening. So Stephen, please join me on stage.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Stephen Dean, and I'm chairman and CEO of Artemis Gold. Artemis is a largely British Columbian-owned and headquartered company, and also the owner of the Blackwater mine here in central BC. We're also the sponsor for tonight's event, and I have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker, Premier David Eby, in what is the 10th year in a row that the BC Premier has attended the Natural Resources Forum. I'd like to start by acknowledging we are gathering tonight on the traditional territory of the Lheidli Nation and I'd like to thank you, Chief Deline, for a very warm welcome tonight. And we're honored to sponsor tonight's proceedings. As we heard before, the evening kicks off the 20th Annual Natural Resources Forum and the first in-person forum held in 3 years. A lot has changed in the world since we last gathered here in Prince George in early 2019, but a lot has remained the same as well. BC continues to have an enviable natural resource base with the potential to have an ongoing, thriving natural resources sector. But to be frank, BC's reputation internationally at times has been challenged as a place to do business in natural resources. It is up to us, the private sector, together with the provincial, federal, and Indigenous governments, to ensure that this potential is realized. Developing projects in BC brings a unique set of challenges. The regulatory and social requirements are frankly the best in the world. And climate leadership continues to grow in importance. But each of these challenges brings opportunities. Our team at Artemis is focused on developing the Blackwater mine in central BC and hopefully, Premier, moving into major construction later this quarter. For us, the input, traditional knowledge, and expertise that our Indigenous nations have brought to us and to the table have been very helpful in finding innovative environmental solutions and improving our project plans. Building strong relationships with our local communities and Indigenous nations has enabled us to understand the generational impact a multi-decade mine life project like Blackwater will have, providing benefits, employment, and economic activity for the region and the province. The added potential to power our project with hydroelectricity from the start will ensure we will build a mine with one of the lowest carbon footprints in the world, and one that our children and grandchildren, and as a recent grandfather, newly, will be very proud of. I appreciate that Premier Eby shares similar views on the importance of community and First Nations relationships and environmental stewardship. This is evidenced in a recent Business in Vancouver op-ed that Premier Eby recently wrote that I found very insightful. In it, Premier, you said increased emphasis on ESG and investing internationally has shone a spotlight on the role governments can play in supporting business. You continued, governments that ensure strong ESG values can help businesses increase value for shareholders and attract investment that would otherwise steer clear. New partnerships with Indigenous peoples, strong environmental protections, and open and welcoming society with high human rights standards in our province tell a compelling story about how companies can support their publicly stated values when they buy BC resources, services, and products. In a nutshell, the unique proposition that exists in BC is the opportunity to lead the world by embracing what others might see as challenges. It's positive to know that those of us that are doing this will have the support of the provincial government. Premier Eby recently passed the 50-day mark of his tenure as BC's 37th Premier. In that time, he has had a steady stream of announcements and new initiatives, including new funding for the RCMP, a new Ministry for Housing, and a new cabinet, with more to come, I'm sure. When I told a couple of people that I had the honor of introducing our Premier, I said, "Have you met him?" And they said, "Well, yeah." "Well, tell me what he's like." And they all said, he's really tall. And he is. I can guarantee you that. But the other thing I can guarantee, and I had the honor of sitting next to him this evening at dinner, is, and I also heard this from Chief Dolene tonight, is he's an excellent listener. Excellent listener. So thank you for that. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our keynote speaker for the evening, Premier David Eby.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for the kind introduction, and it was a pleasure to sit with you at dinner this evening. I'll begin by joining you in recognizing we're on the traditional territory of the Clay-Clay-Tenay First Nation. Thank you, Chief Logan, for the meeting earlier this evening, the welcoming to the territory, and for walking me in this evening. It's been a pleasure to meet you and to talk with you. And it's great to be in Prince George, not just because the sun's shining and I left Vancouver in the rain, but whenever I get tired of being the tall, lanky one in the room, there's always Mr. PG to put things in perspective for me. It's like a long-lost relative. I want to recognize a few folks in the room. Obviously, not going to be able to get to everybody, but I see Regional Chief TG here in the room from the Assembly of First Nations. We have the Mayor of Prince George here and councillors as well. Some of my colleagues from the Legislative Assembly are here this evening. Brenda Bailey, the Minister for Jobs. Brenda, you can give a little wave there. Perfect. Jagrup Brar, Minister of State for Trade, is here this evening. Bruce Ralston, the Minister of Forests. Murray Rankin, the Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation. There you are, Murray. Minister Cullen, the Minister for Water, Land and Resource Stewardship. Minister George Heyman, Minister of the Environment and Climate Change Strategy. George. And Minister Josie Osborne, Minister of Energy, Mines and Low Carbon Innovation. I know we're all excited for the meetings that we've already had and that we are having with you over the forum. Now, as you heard, it's been 60 days since I was sworn in as Premier, and we're not wasting any time in building a better British Columbia, including in partnership with you. For many people, myself included, it starts with certainly protecting the place we call home, while supporting the people who live here. We all share a deep connection, I know it, the people in this room, to the clean water, abundant forests, and rich biodiversity of our province. Our province's landscape is certainly a source of beauty. But as everyone in this room knows, it's also a source of jobs, community, and incredible economic opportunity. The natural resources sector has been and always will be foundational to BC's economy. Like the 7 new mines proposed for our province for the coming years, you heard from Stephen about just one of them, representing an investment of $4 billion into our provincial economy. An investment that could provide thousands of jobs to British Columbians during construction, while supporting communities and providing the raw materials for the world's transition to a low-carbon future and emerging technologies. BC's industries and our province will be a leader in that future. Now, as you heard Stephen say, I'm a strong believer that people look to BC because we have high sustainability standards for resource extraction. And we are the first jurisdiction in Canada to adopt the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. through full partnership with First Nations, by taking a recognition of rights approach and working together on alignment of laws, we're on a path to greater certainty for major resource projects. That's what will and that's what does make our province strong. One of our emerging strengths, for example, lies in hydrogen energy. We're already a world leader thanks to BC's clean electricity, abundant natural resources, and innovative companies. You're seeing that right here in Prince George as Hydra Energy builds the world's largest hydrogen refueling station. Hydrogen projects are going to play a vital and important role in our climate and our economy. Since our government announced a hydrogen strategy less than 2 years ago, some 40 projects or proposals have begun. Those represent potential investments of $4.8 billion. With war in Western Europe and continued uncertainty about energy sources, it's imperative we move towards a low-carbon economy, but take advantage of the opportunities here in our province. We're well positioned to grab a significant share of the global hydrogen market as BC ports can service Japan, South Korea, and the Pacific Northwest. Now, I know that everyone in this room is aware, as am I, as is our government, that world economies are slowing down right now. We see the signs of these global pressures here at home. Unemployment is low in British Columbia, which is great news. But prices are high. British Columbians are seeing higher prices at the grocery till and at the gas pump. That's why we have to continue to act today to build a stronger British Columbia for tomorrow. A British Columbia that leads the nation and the world towards a sustainable future. To be successful, we have to remove unnecessary obstacles to that growth. Obstacles that keep people from getting to work and keep our economy from firing on all cylinders. Now, Stephen and I did not pre-arrange our remarks, but it might feel that way this evening. For decades, a slow and complicated permitting process has bogged our province down. With record proposed investments in our province right now, our already challenged system is starting to show even more strain. I have to tell you that I really became alive to this issue as housing minister. I saw it in the home building industry. And I don't have to tell anybody here that the same challenges exist around permit approval times in the natural resource sector. We even see these challenges in the tourism sector. The cost to people and our economy of these delayed processes are very real. For example, housing is essential to recruiting and retaining a skilled workforce. But a home that only exists on a permit application sitting on someone's desk doesn't do any good for anyone. The home has got to get built. That's as true here in Prince George as it is in Vancouver. For a fast-growing province like British Columbia, did you know that last year, our province's population grew at its fastest rate in the last 50 years? And this year, the first 2 quarters, we're breaking last year's records. So many of the same people who work on housing applications at the Ministry of Environment, they have an important role to play on housing. They're the same people that work on resource applications for permits as well. Many of the same people who work on road applications within the province, the Ministry of Transportation, also look at proposals for roads related to resource projects. So it's critically important that we made the announcement yesterday that we did about addressing the backlogs, addressing the problems in our permitting process. So while our announcement yesterday was focused on housing, and it may not have felt immediately relevant to the folks in this room, with more than 40 new people who are going to take the pressure off that overheated system, it is directly related to your work. Those staff are going to help address the backlogs, certainly related to housing, but it's also going to take pressure off areas in mining, forestry, and energy. We're going to be pursuing a one-stop window starting in housing, but our lessons there will inform our work towards the same for the natural resources sector with the lessons that we learn. Homes that are built faster and more affordably will house workers who want to take the jobs that you are trying to offer them, but they can't find a place to live. Addressing the permitting costs and delay that our overloaded and complicated system can bring is a priority for my government, not just for housing, not just for resources, energy, and forestry, but for every permit that the provincial government issues. We have to maintain our high standards, but permit and bureaucratic backlogs, incomprehensible and sometimes contradictory information and direction and demands, long wait times are completely unacceptable. We have to be focused on solutions. Because to build our province's economic future, governments, including First Nations governments, and industry, and labor, and communities need to work together. Together we'll find that path to a fair, transparent, and timelier process to cope with the demand that we're seeing and grow more opportunities for every single British Columbia. Now, I know that other governments in the past have tried to fix this problem, but the solutions that were implemented simply did not work. We are learning from those lessons in the past, and we are going to work collaboratively to find a balance between the practical solutions that are going to get things done today while doing the larger reform work to make sure that these permitting processes work better in the future. We have to maintain our high standards, and here's why, and you heard a little bit from the Business of Vancouver op-ed. We need to ensure public confidence in our permitting regime, local communities, First Nations, and industry. Everybody needs to have confidence in our processes. We also want to communicate why BC is the place to invest for companies as capital becomes more selective due to the downturn around the globe. British Columbia can benefit from the trends of companies that are increasingly interested in their environmental, social, and governance obligations, known as ESG, of course. Now, just to put some numbers behind that trend, KPMG, the accounting firm, surveyed the heads of companies around the world, more than 1,300 CEOs, 11 different markets, in their 2022 CEO Outlook. The CEOs of the largest companies in the world told them that businesses that embrace ESG priorities are best able to secure talent, critical in our labor market right now, attract loyal customers, obviously important for business, but critical in the economy right now, raise capital. These priorities have gone from a nice-to-have thing to integral to the long-term success of business. 69% of these CEOs expect to have greater demands coming from stakeholders to explain environmental and social standards, and they expect to have to show results. 72% of them expect these demands to only accelerate into the future. Our high standards in BC are, as you heard from Stephen, they can be a competitive advantage. And CEOs around the world that are looking for places to invest should be looking to British Columbia. But just like housing, high standards on paper, high standards for a new mine or forestry initiative that only exists on someone's desk, don't have any impact on the real world, and that's what everybody here would like to do. We need those standards to result in real activity on the ground. We must maintain our standards to ensure that we're competitive in global markets as businesses and nations we trade with look for more. But we also need decisions faster and more efficiently, a lot faster. So we don't miss the cycles that your businesses go through. So we don't miss the remarkable opportunities for investment that are here in front of us right now. So we don't miss the forest for the trees. Now, you can expect to hear more about this in the coming weeks and months from Minister Cullen, who will be leading this critical work for the province. Your industries have distinct needs, as do First Nations who are rights holders. The transactional nature of permitting is changing, and it has to. Partnerships and co-management are the way of the future. There's a major paradigm shift, the effects of which are being felt on the ground, but it's a shift that is necessary and long overdue. This is both to address the legal rights, interests, and concerns of Indigenous rights holders, but also to provide greater certainty to the use of the land and resources. For example, one of the big questions we've been facing for the last 18 months has been the future of resource development in the Northeast. In June of 2021, many of you will know that the BC Supreme Court found that we had breached Treaty 8 as the Blueberry River First Nations could no longer meaningfully exercise its treaty rights as a result of what the court found to be the cumulative impacts of resource development in the area. And we had an option at that point as government. We could appeal the decision, leading to years of battling through the courts and a likely injunction paralyzing activity on the ground. It's what governments have done for generations. But as you've noticed, provincial governments have stopped winning these cases. The outcomes of this approach are years of uncertainty through the court system, and at the end, crashing out the other side with rights recognized through a decision written by one person with generational consequences and nobody prepared for the outcomes. So we decided to take another approach. To meaningfully address this challenge head-on in partnership, to work with Blueberry River and other affiliated First Nations of Treaty 8 instead of appealing. To forge a new future for the Northeast based on partnership and respect, and to demonstrate that negotiation creates better, longer-lasting solutions than further appeals and endless litigation. Now, I know that this approach was not met without some grumbling, but it was quiet grumbling because I think everybody knows we have to find a better way forward, and we have. Over the next couple of days, you will hear some very good news about these negotiations, not just with Blueberry River First Nations, but also with other Treaty 8 partners. I would like to take a moment to recognize the Treaty 8 chiefs in attendance and to thank you for your leadership and hard work. We are breaking new ground together. Last June, the Tahltan Central Government and the province entered into a consent-based decision-making agreement. It was the first of its kind under the Declaration Act. The agreement honors Tahltan's jurisdiction in land management decisions in Tahltan territory. It also provides industry with greater clarity and predictability for the Eskay Creek Revitalization Project. It was an historic agreement. We will be seeing more of these kinds of agreements because with each partnership we establish, a template is set for discussions in the future, and momentum is created towards future agreements. The whole province benefits from a clear, stable, and sustainable path forward. You know, when it comes to forestry, here we are in Prince George, we're at the heart of forestry. When you think of Prince George, you think of forestry. Talked about Mr. PG. He's a terrific mascot for a city whose history and identity are so closely tied to the forest industry. But with falling lumber prices, with the beetle kill wood running out, and unprecedented demands from British Columbians, frankly, of all political stripes, that we do better around old growth and preservation of wild spaces. This is an incredibly challenging time. Last year's mill curtailments were followed by the terrible news last week about the closing of the Canfor pulp and paper mill. That closure is devastating to the workers and their families who've worked so hard over the years to make that mill a success. You know, I had an opportunity today to meet with those workers, to talk to them about the challenges that they face now. And we'll be working side by side with them to respond to this crisis in Prince George. Rapid response teams are working with the community, and ministry staff will ensure people can access programs and supports. Our government has dedicated $185 million to support people through the profound changes that are underway in the industry to ensure sustainability in the forest sector. That help includes things like creating jobs through the Forest Employment Program and training for workers who want to upgrade their skills. This is a difficult time, but I know Prince George is strong. And I would challenge anyone who would bet against this city. When times are tough, that's exactly when you need to know the provincial government has your back. I'm committed to work with you to build a sustainable, strong future for the forest industry. So today's young people can look forward to making a good living in the forests, just like their parents and grandparents did. Forestry is, and always will be, foundational to our economy and our sustainable low-carbon future. We're building new homes, new schools, new hospitals out of BC wood. Mass timber is reaching new heights in communities across the province, and our wood products are competing directly with concrete for builders interested in reducing their carbon footprints. But we need these trends to accelerate. We need to find even more ways that wood can be not just the foundation of our past, but also the fuel and structure of our future. Now, just earlier today, I had the opportunity with some colleagues to announce our latest measures to ensure BC continues to be a place where we harvest our natural resources, but also the place where value is added to those resources, creating more good jobs across the province. The BC Manufacturing Jobs Fund will invest up to $90 million in grants to support businesses with high-value industrial and manufacturing projects. This fund has been dedicated and designed to provide financial support to, for example, a forestry company that needs to purchase new equipment to support new product lines, such as mass timber production or perhaps paper packaging as businesses phase out plastic. We need to get more good-paying jobs out of every single tree we harvest. This investment, which is dedicated to rural BC, will help do that by supporting companies to create value-added forestry products. This is part of the solution and part of the work to ensure a strong forestry industry for generations to come. We know that many BC companies are looking to innovate, create jobs, and expand their operations. Paper Excellence, for example, is proposing investments at one of their mill sites that will create an alternative to single-use plastics and reduce GHG emissions. That mill site right now is closed. Later this week, Minister Bailey will visit the community of that mill site to share how we will support this announcement, how we will support this investment. Man, oh man. Recovering 118 jobs at a shuttered pulp mill through this innovative proposal. Projects like this that promote clean and inclusive growth in rural BC will allow everyone to enjoy the benefits of a strong, sustainable economy. We'll have more to say on investments in BC's forest industry later this week. I kind of gave that away already. You know, and it's obvious, but I think you probably want to hear it from the new guy. The natural resource industry is critical to the well-being and prosperity of BC's economy. Your industries will provide what's needed for the global transition to clean energy. Your industries will provide the sustainable, natural, low-carbon resources for the homes and products that people use every single day. The world is looking for a sustainable, low-carbon economy, and British Columbia can provide the materials and the leadership to help us get there. We have no time to waste. We need to get things done. We need to create more stable, well-paying jobs in the natural resources sector. We need to build the opportunities for all British Columbians to enjoy a good life. British Columbians don't agree on everything, and that's okay. But whereas in the past, so much of what we disagreed about in this province came to a boil around these issues, today I think we're at the threshold of something new. I think the days are past when serious people talked about forestry and mining workers, people who cared about the environment, and Indigenous people as though they were three isolated, non-overlapping groups. They never were then, and they sure aren't now. Because today, more than ever, the future of BC resources are in the values that we all share, a commitment to sustainability, to reconciliation and the rights of Indigenous peoples, to good jobs and shared prosperity for everyone. For British Columbians from every sector and every part of the province, I'll keep fighting for you, and so will all my colleagues in government. BC is a place where people should be able to build a good life, now ideally out of wood. I know we can get there by working together, through collaboration, and in partnership with all of you here in this room tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay, there is a stool here. I just gave it away. I'd like to invite Doug Slater up from Fortis to thank our Premier. Doug's the Vice President of External and Indigenous Relations. So, Doug, thank you.
Comes in handy. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to start by thanking Chief Logan. Thank you for joining us this evening, and I would like to extend my appreciation to the Klele Tene First Nation for allowing us to gather on your traditional territory. While this is my first time attending the Natural Resources Forum in person, FortisBC has been a proud sponsor of this event for many years. We value the opportunity to gather and share perspectives with such a diverse group of people from all around the province. I'd also like to extend my appreciation to the event organizers for putting on this great event. And it is great to be here in Prince George today. This community is and will remain a key community for FortisBC. We have a customer center here as well as a number of our operations folks based in this community. And on behalf of FortisBC and all of the conference attendees, I'd like to extend our gratitude and appreciation to Premier Eby for joining us this evening. FortisBC values our collaborative working relationship with your government, and we look forward to continuing to work towards achieving our shared goals. As the largest energy distributor in BC, we are a key enabler of the government's goals of improving affordability, working towards meaningful reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, and building a low-emission, sustainable economy. FortisBC is moving swiftly to significantly expand and invest in low-carbon solutions for our customers. We are increasing the supply of renewable gases in the province, including hydrogen, and we're expanding our energy efficiency programs that will make life more affordable for our customers. Premier Eby, your presence at the forum is an indicator of your commitment to the natural resources sector in British Columbia and the role it plays in our provincial economy. I would also like to extend my appreciation to your cabinet colleagues and to the many officials from the civil service joining us this week at what I know is a very busy time. We share your commitment to making the very best out of the province's resources while building a clean, secure, and fair economy, and we look forward to working with you. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Premier and Doug. Now I'd like to acknowledge all of our sponsors and supporters, so including patron sponsor Rio Tinto. Without their support, we would not be able to keep this annual spotlight on the natural resource sector going. So thank you very much to those sponsors. Just like to remind you that we will be opening the doors at 8 a.m. tomorrow. We'll be starting opening ceremonies here on stage at 8:30. So wish you guys all an amazing evening, and we'll call the program done today. So thanks again, everyone.